something hit the floor. I hate this suspension. I think it is harder to find a Laguna free without cracked seams than with cracked seats. Also down here, you see scratches everywhere. A little bit slippery. Whoa, it's a very good feeling. Bonjour to all my French car friends. Welcome to my very next video. Today I'm going to talk to you about my personal experience with this Renault Laguna Coupe 2.0 Turbo and why I wouldn't buy this car again. But before you judge too early, I will show you all the positive and all the negative sides this car has, in my opinion, and talk with you through what would be better for this beautiful car. Of course, you guys know I praise this car a lot. I love it. I simply love the look of this car. You might know this car. It's kinda, very special car, of course. You don't see it that often on the road. It reminds many people of a Mercedes E-Class Coupe or C-Class Coupe or even an Aston Martin. I love this car and I'm really happy with it. It is reliable. It doesn't cause any problems to me. But after owning a car 6 months, some things start to bother me a little bit more, and now I will tell you exactly what. And please don't get me wrong, I actually love this car, but this particular model isn't it for me. In the end of the video I will do also a rating of some categories which we talked through here and tell you what I think about this car in general. Most of the why is actually in the interior, which I want to show you right now. I think for a car that was produced firstly 17 years ago, the interior aged amazingly well, and the quality, believe me, is not a huge problem because Renault improved a lot, really a lot, with the MK3 Renault Laguna if you compare it to the Laguna MK2. Of course, not everything in this interior is negative. Almost nothing is negative, but there are some points that get on my nerves. For example, the seats. I think it is harder to find a Laguna free without cracked seats than with cracked seats. It doesn't matter. If you pick leather seats in the MK3 Laguna, here on the side of the driver's or passenger's, seat, it always cracks. I don't know why. The leather quality doesn't seem to be that amazing. The seat itself is very comfortable. I like it a lot, but the quality, you see, might be better. They look stiff, but they are soft, and it's a very soft leather. You can see here. When I press on it, it feels very soft. The next point that I really need to stress out about this car is the rattling from the central console. If you press on it while the car stands still, it's absolutely fine. But, my friends, whenever you drive over bad, bumpy roads, it rattles really a lot. Sometimes it comes from here, and sometimes it comes from the dashboard, actually. Don't get me wrong, in general the quality isn't bad. There are soft materials used everywhere, even on the doors, on the sides, and the gear knob is nice, the steering wheel also feels very nice. It's much better than previous generations of Lagunas, but the rattling, it's a no-go for me. I really don't like this, and this is the reason why. The interior quality isn't really that great, actually. I owned this car for 6 months, and after 6 months, things start to, getting on my nerves. The last actual bad point about the interior, because otherwise I'm kind of happy with it, is visibility. I mean, to the side it's okay, to the front, I don't know if you can see it. The owner from whom I bought this car put this tinted window stuff here on the window, and I'm not a big fan of it because it makes the car feel a little bit more narrow and smaller from the inside. But take a look at the back. I mean, this isn't a good visibility in this car. The B-pillar is a problem in my opinion. Without the B-pillar it would be much better. But the seat, if you can see, the back from my position really isn't that great, and parking maybe it's not difficult, but it gets a little bit worse. Maybe if you look at this car from the side, you notice something. This car isn't stock. And that's also my biggest issue with this car. Look, this car is lowered and has a sport suspension from Eibach. You know, sporty springs, and the whole suspension is actually very sporty. In my opinion, look, this car isn't a real sports car. It looks sporty, yes. It looks nice, of course. It is a coupe, and of course a coupe should drive nicely, which this car does. The engine, the steering, the handling is perfectly fine. But the suspension, after 6 months, for me, is a problem. I used to own this car in a stock version many years ago, and it was much better. Whenever you drive over bumps, maybe I will show you a little bit of it later. Now guys, you can see some bad roads with a speed bump here, so I can demonstrate what I mean. I really have to slow down a lot, and you heard it maybe. Something hit the floor. I hate this suspension, man. The suspension feeling gets unbearable, especially if you live in countries with bad road quality. I would never ever put, you know, like a sport suspension or sport springs in this beautiful car. It's crazy. Thanks to it, and because it is lowered, you see, scratches simply happen. Let me show you some. The front spoiler lip, you see scratches. Also down here, you see scratches everywhere. And guys, believe me, those scratches weren't made by me. Also here on the other side, from the right side. That's very unpleasant, and it's a shame for such a beautiful car to have scratches like this. So if I summarize it, please don't put a sport suspension into this car. It's not a sports car, it never will be. This car is mainly focused on long distances driving and on some fun on the, you know, in the corners, because it has 4Control, rear wheel drive, and it is amazing, but not with a sports suspension. And since we already started to talk about 4Control, let's switch to the positive sides of this car, because in general it is an amazing and a very underrated car. I love it. Wait till the end, I will also tell you why I would not buy this car again. But this doesn't mean that this car is bad at all. You know, thanks to the 4Control system, the rear wheels turn in the opposite direction of the front wheels under 60 kilometers per hour. And if you go over 60 kilometers per hour, the rear wheels turn in the same direction, you know, as the front wheels. This improves stability if you take corners faster, and under 60 kilometers per hour, it improves, you know, like parking maneuvers and stuff like this. It is great. It is really great. It is a kinda huge car, not big, but it's okay. You know, it feels like a small Clio or something, turning wise, because it has this system. It is really amazing, and Renault introduced this with the MK3 Laguna in 2008, so I have to admit Renault made a great job. They used this system until today, and you know, it's kinda, you know, Renault is known for this. I think this helped them sell more cars than they actually would. And guys, if you appreciate my videos and my work for French cars, you know me, you know my content, you know my stuff. If you appreciate what I'm doing for, you know, the French car community in the internet space, leave a like, subscribe, and share your opinion with me. It helps a lot to grow the channel. Then, of course, we have the obvious positive side of this car. It is the looks. Just look at this. This car is simply beautiful. I know many people argue the front isn't that nice, but let's be honest, come on, I think the front is sleek, and with age it still looks great. It kinda reminds me of Italian cars from the front and from the back of some nice British Aston Martins or stuff like this. And you know, together it is a perfect harmony. But you know, taste differs. It is my personal car, and the looks for me are simply a 10 out of 10. But you know, this is something very subjective. What's not subjective but objective is the engine, which I will show you in a moment. By the way, you can see some nice metal pedals here. I'm just opening the hood to show you the engine. So here we go. The infamous 2.0 turbo F4RT, also known as the fart engine, yes. Renault has a thing for crazy names and crazy stuff in their cars. This fart engine produces 205 horsepower. Many people ask me, why didn't you go for the nice V6 from Nissan or the diesel V6? The reason for this is actually very simple. I wanted a manual car, and the V6 versions only came with a automatic transmission, which wasn't the best in this particular model. 205 horsepower and 300 Newton meters are more than enough in this car. It feels amazing on the road, especially on the Autobahn. In the city, sometimes I wish a little bit more, like power, really power, not torque, but power. But on the Autobahn, on 6th gear or on the highway or however it is called in your country, it is amazing. It really feels alive, very vivid, and absolutely, maybe not sporty, but people really respect this car when they see it in their rear window. The owner before me had some problems with animals biting cables and stuff, but it was fixed, of course. Let me start the car up for you. You see, very nice 4-cylinder engine sound. Nothing special, of course, but you can see the engine sounds very nice. It doesn't make any unpleasant sounds. It vibrates a little bit. This engine actually really vibrates a little bit, especially if it's cold. But once it gets some temperature, it feels absolutely great and smooth. You see, driving-wise, if we talk about the engine and power, a little bit slippery. Whoa, it's a very good feeling. It's a very good feeling. The engine sound is also nice, but nevertheless, the suspension isn't great. If you want a full point of view driving review of this car, check out my channel. I already made many more videos about this car, so you can, get to know this car a little bit more. Small pull in 3rd gear from 2000 RPM. Okay guys, let's close the hood and let's move on to other positive parts of this car. And the next positive sides of the car start on the interior. I'm 186 tall and kinda a big guy, not tall but big. I have my problems with weight, like many of us have, and I have to say I fit into this car amazingly. The space is great for a coupe, mid-size coupe. You never feel, like it would be kinda like you wouldn't have enough space in this car. It's a very comfortable ride, especially for long distances. This car was made, funnily, for long distances, in my opinion, to cruise around on the Autobahn or highway and simply enjoy the drive. Especially knee room is great in this car, because you can see the central console is kinda low and you don't simply have anything to lean your knee against here in this area. This car has 110,000 kilometers on the clock, and in 6 months I made approximately 6,000 kilometers. The very next thing I think is great about this car is the consumption. Okay, if I will show you the consumption now, it will be kinda high, 9.7, but I will show you some screenshots here in the video, reached numbers of 8.8, and believe me, I'm not a slow driver. I'm not really aggressive or anything, but I'm not driving it slow. On the Autobahn, I'm mostly driving at around 150 or 160 kilometers per hour, and I shift at around 2.5 to 3,000, RPM. I think it's pretty much standard, and you really can get the consumption really low. I also owned the same car with the same engine many years ago, other color. It wasn't the same car, but the same model, let's say. And it consumed around 11 liters per 100 kilometers. Maybe here I'm happy and lucky with the engine, but really, consumption isn't that high. If you would like to see a consumption video, if you would like to know how much the car consumes, let me know in the comments and I will do a video about this in the future. Another thing that is very nice in this car, and I forgot to mention, is the Bose sound system. I mean, remember, this car was released in 2008 and I have no problems with connecting my iPhone 15 Pro Max with this car via Bluetooth. It works perfectly fine. I don't know how it works with Android devices, but iPhone and the Bose sound system, which sounds really amazing, I cannot showcase it to you because of YouTube, of course, and copyright stuff. But believe me, I can connect the Bluetooth to this car, and it is really nice to have a gimmick like this in a car that was released in 2008. That's a very huge plus from my side. Also, my friends, trunk space. Trunk space is great for a two-door coupe. You can fit so much stuff here. Sorry, it's a little bit dirty and my wife forgot her jacket here. But believe me, you can even see if you pull this lever here, you get a flat cargo area when the back seat folds, and this is simply amazing in a two-door coupe. Well, and in general, I am honest with you guys. Look at this. This car is beautiful and reliable. That's also a huge point. You know, French cars have a bad reputation, and I really don't know why. In my family, you know, it's a tradition to drive Renault. My dad is 53 years old. He never owned a different car than a Renault. He never ever had any major issue with the engine or the gearbox or some important stuff, you know. Mostly French cars or problems with French cars come down to electronics. And this often only happens in older models. It really isn't that bad as people tell you. In my opinion, French cars are creative. They scream freedom. They scream beauty. And they aren't as bad as their reputation is. And this is also the reason why I started this channel. I want to show the world what French cars are capable of. It doesn't matter if you drive a Renault or a Peugeot or a Citroën or a DS or whatever. French cars are better than their reputation, and don't let someone tell you they are bad just because, you know, you heard this from some kid on the internet. This is simply not true. I also in my whole life never owned another car than a Renault, and I never had any kind of issues. I didn't even have small issues. Of course, I have my driver's license for 12 years now. I'm almost 30 years old and I will turn 30 sadly next month. And believe me, I never had an issue with this car. I never had an issue with this car or with another Renault. Never ever. Not a single one. I had some, you know, small problems once with electronics in my Renault Talisman. And in this car, the first month I owned it, there was one problem with a sensor somewhere. You know, the mechanic, you know, turned off the computer, started it again, and the problem was gone. Now you might ask yourself why I wouldn't buy this car again if almost everything is positive. Well, it really comes down to the suspension. It's not about the car itself, it's not about the Laguna Coupe, it is about the suspension. It really bothers me a lot. I of course love my car and I would always buy a Laguna Coupe again, but my friends, not with this suspension. I think after the winter I will change it. Maybe before the winter even, it would be better for winter, because this is unbearable and I really don't like it. It's not a sports car. It's a comfortable car with a sporty character, and this is what people mostly don't understand. You want a sports car from Renault? Buy a Megane RS, buy a Clio RS, buy an Alpine if you have the money, and you will be happy. But this here is a car to cruise around. So let's rate this car in general. Well, if we start with the looks, it is highly subjective. I would give this car a 9 out of 10. Yes, it is high, but I love the sleek, elegant design of the car. The only thing that bothers me a little bit are the front headlights, but I also kind of like them. You know, it simply is very subjective. People might give it another rating, but for me it is a 9 out of 10. Driving wise, I would give this car 8 out of 10, because once you know what this car is made for and that it isn't a sports car, even though it looks very sporty, you will appreciate this car a lot more. Handling is crazy, handling is really amazing. The engine is good. I'm honest with you, nothing really special, but more than enough for this car. And the general impression of, the driving feeling, the driving comfort is amazing. I won't take the suspension into consideration because it is not stock. And if I would give this suspension a rating, I would give it a 3. Stock suspension, I would give it a 6 because it is sporty, but in the same time, still a lot of comfort remains. Comfort wise, I would also give this car like a 7 out of 10. The seats are comfortable, the steering is nice, long distances are very nicely made. You don't have back problems in this car. The problem is when you sit in it, when you want to try to sit in it, you can see it gets very low. And if you are an old man like I am, almost 30 years, it might get a little bit uncomfortable. Okay, my friends, that's it. And to summarize, I simply love this car. I would buy it again, but not this particular model. Don't forget to like, to subscribe, to help the channel grow. I would appreciate it a lot. Thank you for joining me. And if you want to see how this car drives, check out the point of view driving to the upper left side here, or the full interior on your right side. Thank you for joining. See you in the next one. Have a great week and bye bye.